Hello everyone, my name is Amit Bhagat. I am an independent researcher currently working on the Eastern Vidarbha region, specifically on Iron Age and prehistoric societies and cultures. First of all, uh, I would like to thank Mr. Sandeep Dahi Sarkar for giving me an opportunity to present here on Shilahar Heritage Services platform. My topic for the presentation is Tombs of Gond Rajas of Chanda. Chanda was the old dynasty of old gold dynasty. Today, the name of Chanda is Chandrapur. It has been subdivided into two districts, Chandrapur and Gadchiroli districts of the Maharashtra. Let us start with the presentation. As you all know, the Gond dynasty of Chanda is very well known and it is a part of the Gondwana region. Gondwana region has several Gond dynasties that has flourished between mid 13th century to mid 18th century. And Gond dynasty of Chanda, that is of Chandrapur, is very prominent among among all these Gond dynasties, and it's very well known in Vidarbha region. This is what I'm going to cover. First of all, Gondwana land. Uh, what exactly means what is the area? What is the demarcations of Gondwana land? Its peculiarities and uniqueness. That different Gond dynasties that ruled over Gondwana land. Then specifically, I'll discuss about Gond dynasty of Chanda, and then we'll move towards the different tombs or graves of Gond kings, rulers, and their royal dynasty. Somewhere there in Chandrapur itself, and one of the tomb is there in the Ballarpur, another adjacent city, the famous railway junction. And after that, we'll discuss over this art and architecture of those tombs, um, and how unique are these tombs with respect to other samadhis, tombs, graves, and mausoleums which are there in the different parts of the country. And we'll then conclude, and I'll give references. Gondwana land, as the name suggests, it's Gondwana. Gond is a tribe. It's the one of the largest tribe of India. It has around 1.3 crore population, and Vana means forest. So it's a forest dwelling tribe, that Gond tribe, that covers the area of Vidarbha, that is Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, and Madhya Pradesh, and even a uh, part of Andhra Pradesh and newly found Telangana state. Gondwana has different names also, like Dandakaranya, Jhadi Mandal, or Jhadi Pradesh. Uh, People call it as a Dandakaranya. It has several references in Mahabharata, in Puranic literatures. So Dandakaranya is especially the eastern part of this Gondwana land. It's the centralmost region of this India, of the country. So it was earlier known as central provinces, and also been referred as a Madhya Pradesh or Madhya Pranta. Jhadi Pradesh or Jhadi Mandal was the name given by Mahanubhava founder Chakradhar Swami. So it was frequently occurred in Mahanubhav literature. So politically, during British period, it was known as a central province along with the Berar region, that is the western Vidarbha region. uh, uh, Gondwana is quite popular name because of its use in geography and geological theories. The most popular theory was supercontinent theory, uh, or it is also known as continental drift theory by Alfred Wegener. It's very popular, and it's almost known to all students, researchers, scholars of geology, geography, environment. The drifting of drifting of landmass, and how different continents have been formed. So the name was given by the British scientist to continents, that Pangaea and Gondwana. Will not go in detail of that theory, but it was very prominent name. So it has connection with this Gondwana land. The name is connected with that land, actually the area. It was also a geologically very significant area, because it is also known as land of dinosaurs, land of tigers, land of coal mines, minerals, and other metals. Um the earliest references of the dinosaurs have been found out here, in 1850s. So this is the region, including the Jabalpur region, and also the Indravati, Pranhita, and Godavari basin area, where the skeleton of dinosaurs have been found out. The two uh, complete skeleton which are there in the Kolkata and Hyderabad, the Birla Science Center of Hyderabad and Indian Statistical Institute of Kolkata. So they were obtained from this Godavari, Indravati, and Pranita basin area of Telangana. So it was a part of Gondwana land. The, the area was inhabited by Gond people. So the area is very peculiar in the sense of geology. There are several coal mines, and it reflects, or it gives the indications of the carbonification process. So because of those coal mines, we come to know that the genesis of rocks and the different landforms can be traced from this region. So even the dinosaurs which were there during around 12 crores years up to 6.5 crores years, during the Mesozoic or Jurassic era. So it's famous land of dinosaurs. The other areas are of Gujarat, Kutch region, and the Narmada basin, and the central province itself. As I already said, it's a coal area of coal mines and other minerals. In case of Maharashtra, these minerals are very rarely found in the Deccan Plateau region. They are found in the coastal region, but because of the volcanic eruption and the formation of the Deccan Trap, this can't be traced. These minerals can't be traced. They are trapped under lava. So mainly after one crosses the Vardha river, uh, we will find these minerals like iron, different ores of iron, copper, limestone, and even coal and other minerals can be found out here. It is the popular area of the region of the tigers, because in Maharashtra itself we can trace many tiger reserves, sanctuaries, and similarly, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh part, there are several very known, very popular tiger reserves. Like there we find Kanha, then Achanakmar, Amarkantak region, and here it's Tadoba, Navegaon, Bor, uh, Andhari, Tadoba Andhari, Nagzira. So there are several tiger reserves which we can find in this region. So it was a very famous land of tigers. In during British period, it was very popular for big game encounters. So this is the general peculiarity of that this region, land of tigers. People here have been living with tigers since ages. It is also very popular for megaliths, and specifically they are called as the Vidarbhan megaliths. Uh, the megalithic period, or the Iron Age, during Iron Age period, several several stones have been raised or circularly or in different fashion they've been arranged to mark uh, the burials of their people. So they are very popular in Vidarbha region, and also the land is very famous for the Sanskrit literature, like people like Kalidasa, Bhobhuti, Mukundraj were from this region. So this is the old map, political map of India. Here we can see the central provinces region during the British period. After division, uh, it became part of Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Telangana, Chhattisgarh, this region. This is the Gondwana and different districts that comes under Gondwana. Now, when we talk about the Gond kingdoms or the dynasties, there are four. There were four dynasties. The prominent among them were the Jabalpur's Gadha Mandla kingdom, uh, then Chanda kingdom of Chandrapur, and Kerala kingdom of Betul, and Devgad kingdom of Chindwada. These four kingdoms. Earlier there were only three kingdoms. Kerala kingdom came later, and then uh, when means during the mid of 13th century, their rise was very significant. If you talk about the Chandrapur kingdom, here this Maharashtra, the easternmost part, the Vidarbha region, and the eastern Vidarbha was a part of Gondwana. So I was talking about the Chanda kingdom. The rise of Chanda kingdom was very peculiar, and with the fall of Yadwas of Devgiri and the Kakatiyas of Warangal at the hands of Alauddin Khilji and his noble Malik Kafur, the turning point of the history has arrived. Then came where there was vacuum in those regions, the eastern part of Maharashtra and the northern part of Andhra region. So there was vacuum, and that vacuum was occupied by the vessels of Kakatiyas and Yadwas. So Gonds were earlier the vassals of Kakatiya dynasties. They were there during the early 13th century, but during the mid 13th century, they moved towards northern part of the Andhra Pradesh. Earlier, their capital was Sirpur. Then they moved towards Ballarpur, and thirdly, the final capital and the capital by whose name that kingdom was known was Chandrapur. So that was the final, the biggest capital of this dynasty. So their rise marks the end of Yadwas and Kakatiyas. And since the region was not so accessible, even these days, so this region was remained isolated or secluded from attacks of the adjoining dynasties or kingdoms. So during the Bahmani period, Mughal Sultanate and Mughal period also, uh, they paid tribute to these kings or kingdoms and secure their land. And they people never bothered to come there and to fight with these kings, because they were the region was in the deepest jungle part of that region. So it was very and with all mountains, hills, and irregular terrains. So it was very difficult to occupy these or to conquer this region. So it remained secluded, isolated, and the continuous rule was there. So you can see here the list of kings, right from Bhim Ballal Singh in the mid 13th century up to mid 18th century, Nilkant Shah. So the continuous rule was not interrupted by any conquest or any occupation of this region. Though there were challenges, but they they cope up with the challenges and paid tributes, accepted their accepted suzerainty, and the kingdom remained isolated and remained independent for almost 500 years. So I'm not talking about the earliest capital, Sirpur. Uh, I'll first talk about the Ballarpur capital, because it is very much connected with the tomb which I'm going to discuss. Ballarpur name was given, means that city has two names, actually two names. One Ballarpur, another is Ballar Shah. It was named after. People believe that the city has been named after Khanqia Ballar Shah, the king Khanqia Ballar Shah, who was ruling during the end of 15th century, the last quarter of the 15th century. Uh, his tomb is there in Ballarpur. So people believe that that king has built this capital because the name is Ballarpur or Ballar Shah. But actually, uh, the capital was named after the earliest king during the 14th century, Adia Ballal Singh. So that after his name, the city or the region which he developed into a city was known as Ballarpur. It became Ballarpur, and people call it as a Ballar Shah. It is a very famous junction for those trains, north south junction. So if you go to Delhi by Chennai through Chennai, so Delhi Chennai or Chennai Delhi to and fro route, the Ballarpur is very famous junction. Every train has to take a technical halt here. So people are aware of this place, but not aware of its history. This is the images of some of the images of the fort, the medieval fort built somewhere during 15th century. This is the tomb which I'm going to talk about. The name is written on the tomb, Khanka Ballar Shah's tomb. You can see here these these bone kingdoms were the tribal kingdoms, and tribals, the Gonds and Madiyas, are different categories of subcategories of Gond tribe. Even this date, they bury, they do not cremate, they bury their deads, dead bodies. So even in the Madia tribe, the megalithic culture, that burial culture and erecting the commemorative stones can be seen even today. Madia is the uh, most backward community sub tribe of Gond, and this Gond kingdom has has several tribes. These kings were belong to the Rajgond tribes, I mean the royal Gonds. So most of the kings and all of the mostly all of the kings are from Rajgond community and not from other communities which are still residing in tribal belt, and they are still forest dwelling communities like Maria community. So this Khanka Ballar Shah, the huge tomb is there. People are not so much aware about this tomb, even in that city. But as we all know, uh, in the absence of written evidences, no inscriptions, no written literature of that time, because of that reason, people are hardly aware of Gond kingdoms, their names, name of the kings, uh, their contribution, and all these things. People gets aware of this kingdom only through later period references like British references, then Maratha, Peshwa references, and Bhosle, uh, Nagpur's Bhosle's records and chronicles. So the earliest period was a kind of a very dark region. Though some Muslim chronicles, Islamic chronicles of Bahmanis mention it, but they mention it very rarely. These scarce references are available. So mainly we have to depend upon these later period references, Peshwas, Marathas, and British references. So you can see here the grand mausoleum can be seen uh, of Khanka Balla Shah. The typical pattern means is very much influenced from Islamic architecture, round shape, even a circular structures, tomb, gummad can be seen here. This is a lateral angle photo. King's tomb. It's a huge tomb. Arches can be seen, doors, doorways, like Islamic architecture. The grandeur can be seen from outside, but inside the the actual place where the person has been buried, the grave, that has been marked in very simple and very noble way. There is no carving or nothing outside or any wall. Here you can see the pair of footsteps. These footprints believed to be belong to his wife. So these are 84 footprints, so in 42 pairs. So people believe that they were of 42 wives of Khanka Balla Shah who went sati on his funeral pyre. Though there is no corroborative evidences to support these cases, even such traditions, Hindu or Sanskritized traditions, were there in tribals or these tribal kingdoms. We don't know, so there is no corroborative evidences to support it. Just adjacent to this tomb is the tomb of the Nilkant Shah, the last ruler of this dynasty. He was a very meek and very simple ruler. He did not have courage to fight with during those period with the Bhosles of Nagpur, who were strengthening their empire in the Nagpur region. The Chandrapur region is very adjacent to Nagpur, just 150 kilometers away from it. So he was founding his empire in the uh, Raghuji Bhosle of Nagpur, founding his empire in this Nagpur and adjoining region. So Nilkant Shah was not so courageous to fight with him. Earlier kings like his predecessors, Ram Shah, had a very friendly relationship and alliance with Raghuji Bhosle of Nagpur. But Nilkant Shah, he suspected his intention, Raghuji's intention, and he plot a kind of war against him, Raghuji Bhosle. When he came to know, he imprisoned Nilkant Shah in this fort, Balasha Fort, and he died here only. So with in 1751, the dynasty has ended, and this marks his tomb and even the end of this dynasty. So we can see both these tombs lying side by side. One of the tomb of one of the great king or ruler of Gond dynasty, and another was the last ruler, was not that strong to defend his territory, his country, and his dynasty. Let's move to the Chandrapur Fort. This is the 1870s photos taken from British Library. You can see this huge gate and the bastions with a Union Jack on it. These are the Pathanpura Gate. This fort was built by these gates started its construction during the reign of Khanka Balla Shah, and Khanka Balla Shah was considered as the real founder of Chandrapur city and Chandrapur fort. There was very interesting story behind this formation of fort. I'm not going into detail of that, but the fort has long ramparts of very high, very strong and long ramparts and high bastions, circular bastions. So these ramparts are around 12.5 kilometer long, continuous. So this is considered as the one of the very long fort of Maharashtra, and even of one of those such forts in country. So the earlier photo was of 1870s. This 2020s photo of the same gate, Pathanpura Gate. Another gate, Jetpura Gate. So it has several gates, four gates, and some sub gates called as khidkis. So Jetpura, Anchaleshwar, Pathanpura, these are the main gates. These are few photos of Jetpura Gate, same gate. And there are several sub gates locally called as khidkis, like Hanuman Khidki, Bagad Khidki, Chor Khidki. Mahakali temple, though it's not part of the tomb, but the very interesting story is connected with this Mahakali temple. Uh, Actually, Rani Hirai, queen of uh, Raja Bir Singh, was ruling from in the end of during the end of 17th century, from 1696 to 1704. So Rani Hirai has constructed this Mahakali temple. Though earlier, the earliest temple was constructed by Khanika Balla Shah, but it was very small temple. On the same place, Queen Hirai has constructed this big and grand temple. Uh, it so happened that the King Bir Shah and Queen Hirai had a daughter who was given in marriage to Durgapal, the prince of Gond dynasty of Devgarh. The prince so insulted his wife that she returned to her parents, upon which Bir Shah vowed to punish him, praying to the goddess Mahakali that in the event of success, he would present her with Durgapal's head and construct a bigger temple on the same place. When Bir Shah advanced with his army, Durgapal came forward to challenge him, and in the battle that ensued, the latter was defeated and killed. As promised, his head was severed and presented to the goddess ceremoniously. Later, around uh, early 18th century, when Hirai constructed the temple, a stone head of Durgapal was fixed on the temple. It was not the real head, though real head was offered to this Mahakali, but symbolical head in stone has been put on this temple to mark the commemoration of victory of Bir Shah on Durgapal. So it does not only mark victory of that king, but also mark the victory of justice and how justice had been done when women was insulted. So this Kali or Mahakali, which popularly been known, is considered to be another form of Ma Kali Kankali, which was the famous goddess of Gond kings. The similar goddess is there in their caves of Kachargarh. So it is considered as the incarnation of the same Ma Kali Kankali. So it is known as Mahakali, very ferocious goddess. So during Navratris and during the Chaitra Purnima also, in the month of February too, the large fair gathers. People flock here in several thousands number. So it is very famous in the famous temple and considered to be their royal deity of Gond dynasty. Here you can see the photos of Mahakali temple from outside and from inside. Inside there are very beautiful pictures, paintings on the walls of this temple. They were belong to the 17th and early 18th century, peculiar Gond dynasty and the royal pictures with royal scenes. These are some of the photos of Mahakali fair. People from not only from Maharashtra but from Andhra, Telangana, Bastar region, and Madhya Pradesh comes here, and they pay tribute to Mahakali. Here in this photo, you can see the Jharpat River. The fort is on the bank of this river. Here the Anchaleshwar temple, and beside this, the region is known as Hadwada or the Royal Graveyard, which I'm going to talk in the next coming slides. Oh. So here you can see the tombs of royal Gond families. The only Ballarpur has these two tombs, tombs of Nilkant Shah and tombs of Khanka Ballar Shah. Rest of the tombs were located at very same place, located at one place in Chandrapur. It is popularly known as Hadwada because that that structure means the graveyard has been formed by using the wall of this fort. So one wall is actually is of fort, and three walls have been constructed. So these wall has been constructed in circular fashion. So it looks like a whale, resembles whale. So in Marathi, whale is also called as ad. So probably the name came from this whale. So it's Adwada. Now people call it as Hadwada. The left side photo is of British Library photos of 1870s. Right side the same photo. This photos of the same place in 2020. Here's the larger picture of these tombs. We can point out around 6-7 tombs here. This is the royal graveyard. Till recently, some 50 to 50, 70 years ago, the descendants of this family, they use this graveyard to uh, bury their people, means that these descendants. But then government has stopped it and made it a heritage site. So now this doesn't happen. Uh, Means they are not allowed to bury their the people or the descendants here. So this area covers almost 300 to 400 years of a continuous heritage, where the royal kings families, people from the royal families have been buried over here, right from 15th century up to mid 18th 19th century. So this is the most beautiful picture of the tomb of king. The king was Bir Shah, the same king about which I was talking about when I was talking about the Mahakali temple. The Bir Shah, who died very young age, and this place has been have been marked by him during his reign. But the mausoleum or the tomb was been built by his wife, Queen Hirai. The same Queen Hirai has built Mahakali temple also. Since the king has very short lifespan, just of 8 years on throne. So Queen Hirai, she has succeeded the king. So this is the tomb of Bir Shah, different angles of the tomb. So you can clearly see the influence of Islamic, even Rajasthani and Malwa architecture on this tomb. Minarets kind of architecture, circular and circular gumbad, minars, and high platform. cow motifs outside. Here in this picture you can see the fountain also, place of fountain. This is the inside view of the tomb of Bir Shah. You can very well make out the intricate carving which has been made on this tomb and the inside region. Mesh-like architecture, even the doors and windows. Fine, delicate, and intricate work has been done on this tomb in such a way that we rarely believe that such kind of tombs are there can be found in Vidarbha region too. These are very much there in northern part, Fatehpur Sikri, Agra, Delhi, and even in Bidar, Gulbarga. But Vidarbha, there are means people hardly believe that such structures does exist. This is the outside. You can see different motifs with designs. Here is the emblem of Gond dynasty, where a roaring lion or the tiger has been depicted overpowering elephant, the mighty elephant. Here we can make out different motifs and designs. In most of the motifs, birds have been depicted, like swan, parrot, with flower and floral designs, very beautiful arches, and fine and delicate carving. Here, the left side, the topmost picture is of the emblem which I was talking about. You can make out this face. This is very a tribal motif of lion or the tiger. This can very well be seen in Gond paintings which we see today. Those, of course, they were from the Madhya Pradesh regions, these Gond paintings, but the face of the tiger or the lion can be seen or the shown in this way. Here, serpent can be seen. So, serpent has been popularly worshipped in in India, different parts of India, but but they are very rarely found in on the tombs or any mausoleum structures. So this is the mixture of different tribal, Hindu, and even Islamic architecture and their designs. Here, this is a very peculiar picture where the swan has been shown with the elephant head. He's fighting with another swan. So here we can make out the imagination of the artist. And here, elephant has been shown overpowered. So these are the different animal motifs can be seen on the wall of uh, the tomb of Bir Shah. Surasundari or Devangana, popularly called as Apsaras. These are the divine Apsaras which are seen or shown on the walls of temples of early or medieval period. It's very rare to find such Apsaras or Devanganas on the wall of any tomb or mausoleum. So yes, there are several examples of it, but it's of a rare kind. So these are the Sur Sundaris, different Sur Sundaris, Putra Vallabha, then Apsara, Devanganas. These monkeys are shown messing with the Apsara. Here you can see this optical illusion, the two bodies of tiger with single face. This is the common face. So if you hide body of any single tiger, you can see the another tiger with the complete body and face. So this is the example of optical illusion. There are several examples which can be seen on these tombs. Here you can see different types of tombs, the larger one, smaller one, even a very simple sober tomb. Queen Hirai's tomb lies in front of Bir Shah's tomb. We are very much aware about the Humayun's tomb in Delhi. The tomb was built by his wife after the death of Humayun. Here, the same has happened in Chandrapur also. The tomb of Bir Shah has been built by his beloved wife, Rani Hirai, Queen Hirai. So there is a parallel of example in this history. The tomb has been built after the death of the king by the queens. So even people compare this building of tomb by Queen Hirai with that of the Taj Mahal, where Taj Mahal was built in the memory of Mumtaz by Shah Jahan. So it stands as a memory of love, symbol of love. So similarly, here also the Bir Shah's tomb stand as a symbol of Queen Hirai's love for him. Though Bir Shah's tomb is very grand, very massive in nature, but Queen Hirai's tomb is very simple and very sober in nature. Probably it reflects her simplicity and her devotion for King Bir Shah. Here you can see the central fountain, though it's not in use, not in working condition, but inside we can see different designs, floral motifs, animal motifs, and very finely and intricately designed wall designs structures over here. So we can imagine when it was functional, it would have been it could have been very popular or very beautiful in nature. And though it a part of a graveyard, but the Muslim concept of these uh, graves, where these graves too has different fountains and different water channels. So this concept has been taken from the Islamic architecture, where the fountain can be seen uh, among these graves. Huh. Here you can compare these types of tombs. Some are circular, some are squarish, some are hexagonal. So it could be because they were built during different periods, and it could be because they were built by different artists or sculptors. Actually, apart from King Bir Shah or Hirai, there are tombs of his predecessors too, like King Hir Shah, and then his wife Gangabai, and then Dhundya Ram Shah, Ballar Shah, Babji. So, but it is very difficult to make out uh, because these names are not written or written at any place. So people believe that certain tombs belong to certain kings, but these opinions differs. People call some tombs like uh, the grand tombs are of uh, kings only, and small are of queens. But there is not means the consenting opinion about these tombs. So it's very difficult to name these tombs. Though we could name few, means out of 10 12 tombs we could name 5 6 tombs correctly, but about others we do not exactly know whose tomb is this. But we definitely know that these were the kings or queens which have been buried in this graveyard. So you can see here the pillars and the arches, they're beautifully made. Here also decorative simple arches, then decorative arches. So the tombs of Gond kings or the royal dynasties uh, of this Chandrapur or Chanda dynasty, they are found at Chandrapur and Ballarpur, these two locations. Tombs of Khandka Ballar, the founder of Chandrapur city, and Nilkant Shah was the last ruler of the dynasty. These two tombs are there at Ballarpur, but rest other tombs are there at Chandrapur at the same place known as Hadwada or the royal graveyard, and out of which the largest tomb is of King Bir Shah, which was built by Queen Hirai, and several other tombs. The problem is that these tombs have not been properly studied. Though they are the part of heritage monuments and protected by ASI, so it's ASI protected monument, but they are not properly studied because people are hardly aware of Gond dynasties, their kings, their history, their contribution. They have a large contribution for this region. Uh, the region being a tribal region or highly inaccessible region, so it's very difficult to trace where exactly there will be different structures. But yes, there are different grand structures are there apart from these graves or these tombs. They have temples, they have mahal palaces, they built different tanks, even even the fort is the fort reflects their interest in art and architecture and foundation of uh, city or the capital, since the ramparts of the forts are almost 12.5 kilometers long, which is very rare to find in this region, and also in uh, Maharashtra also. So these things need to be studied properly. These things need to be analyzed and need to be researched, so that we could compare it with different dynasties, contemporary kingdoms, their art and architecture. Being a tribal dynasty, of course, these dynasties have been ignored by various people or those who are working in the medieval period or in on the history of Maharashtra or Madhya Prant, central provinces. They ignore it just because there are lack of references. The major problem is the lack of references. There is no written records of that dynasty means written anywhere in any form, like inscriptions or any engravings or any chronicles. These are not there. So in the absence of it, it is very difficult to find out things and even to corroborate it. So early 300 years, the early part of this empire is actually in absolute darkness. The later part, where references are there, they are limited references, but yes, references are there, and they can be studied, they can be analyzed, and they can be the evidences of it can be very much seen. So these need to be studied, needs to be analyzed, and then we can very well come out with a a great picture of it, and we can uh, confidently talk about it. And of course, we can compare this dynasty and their contribution, and we could make it available for our future generation to work on it more. So here you can see this references starts with the means the references which I use start with British references. The first one is by Richard Jenkins, the famous British resident of Nagpur court. Then, of course, one of the earliest collector of this region, Chandrapur district, Colonel L.B. Lucy Smith, who did settlement of this region. So he had collected and chronicalized different chronicles, and then put put it into his book, the settlement reports. So it was the earliest uh, reports, or the earliest um, what we can say as a earliest chronicle which can be referred for the study. So it is very primary and very fundamental source of this. Of course, this is from oral tradition or different chronicles of Sardars of that period. Then Chanda District Gazetteer, it has taken references from these two sources. Story of Gondwana, I Chatterton, the famous bishop of Chandrapur and also of Nagpur church. So he has written a good book, Story of Gondwana. He has given, he talked about different dynasties of Gondwana. One among them was, of course, Chanda dynasty. So he talked in detail of Chanda dynasty and their structures. Then, then the A.J. Rajurkar, he was the foremost and the prominent historian of Chandrapur. He did a commendable job. He compiled, he researched, and he collected different versions of history. He gone through it and then filtered it out and come out with a book, a grand book, Chandrapur Sa Itihas, the history of Chandrapur. So he did really a commendable job. A.J. Rajurkar is called as a historian of Chandrapur, earliest historian of Chandrapur. Then Prabhakar Gadre, he too have written about it. Bhangya Bukhya, and another historian, Datta Tanirwar. Uh, I've taken photos from British Library. Most of the photos are of mine, and I've used few photos of Devanand Sakharkar, photographer of Chandrapur district. So I think I've covered these tombs, samadhis, graves of Gond kings, every single known samadhis of these kings, and I hope this will be the primary work or the presentation which I'm going to revise hereafter with more study and research. And this is what I have to offer. I have with me to offer. Thank you so much for patient listening, and thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to present on this platform. Thanks a lot.